Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. When a strange illness begins destroying Luffy from the inside, whispers start spreading, that his blood is poisonous, that he was never meant to live long, that he's more monster than man. But to the Straw Hats, he isn't a curse or a danger. He's their captain, their friend, their family. As Luffy's condition worsens and the pain becomes unbearable, the crew is forced to confront fear, doubt, and the possibility of losing the one person who brought them all together. Zoro stands at his side, refusing to let him fall. Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper. Each of them fights in their own way to protect the boy who saved them first. Because no matter what runs through his veins, Luffy is theirs, and they are not letting him go down without a fight. A disclaimer. This story do not belong to me. The author is What Was in the Blood by Lodowa Korona. Respect to author.
Chapter 1. When the World Crumbled. This morning could have been called normal, with a slight exception. At first glance, everything was as it was supposed to be. The new day was slowly but surely welcoming the Straw Hats who were tending to their business. Nami and Robin were in the library. The navigator was concentrating at the desk, putting finishing touches to her newest map. Besides her, Robin was studying a thick, difficult-looking book. It was a relaxing part of the day, one that both women loved and treasured. Other Straw Hats were up as well. Brook was standing on the upper deck, producing soft tunes with his violin. There were also muffled sounds of a hammer from Frankie's workplace and not-so-quiet cursing from the swordsman who, apparently, was failing to find a bathroom. Sanji was already calling for breakfast. The rest of boys could be heard dragging themselves out of beds, shuffling their feet and yawning. But something was not heard. Or rather, someone. Nami frowned. The lack of Luffy's yelling was strangely unnerving. It seemed that their captain irritated her both when he was his normal boisterous self and when he refused to be so and make a ruckus. The navigator stood up with a huff. She angrily stomped outside, while Robin followed her with a smile. It was a beautiful day. Nami breathed in the fresh air and took a look around. Her gaze rested on the slouched form of Usopp in the company of Chopper. They must have noticed something unusual in the ocean. They were jumping in place and searching the waters with sparkling eyes, barely containing excitement. "Look," Usopp shouted. His index finger pointed downwards, where a dark shape moved by Sunny. "I told you. And you dared to doubt the great, outstanding Usopp-sama. I said that they would take this bait, did I not? Whoa, this is so amazing." Chopper agreed with stars in his orbits. Nami walked to them slowly. She risked a look over the railing, her forehead more and more wrinkled from progressive frowning. It seemed that someone, probably the sniper, if his boasting was any indication, tied some green material by a string and connected it with a stake in the paling. It was thrown into the water and currently followed by mysterious shapes, hidden by the foam. Are these boxers? The navigator wondered. She quickly shook her head. She was taught by experience to never question small oddities among the Straw Hats. What seemed more interesting was not the strange use of the underwear, but rather, what was trying to grab it with large, downturned beaks. And were those horns, growing out of thick, scale-covered heads? These are fine-looking turtles you managed to gather, Usopp, Robin complimented. Usopp, not one to ignore praise, stood a little taller. Well, of course, I summoned them for food supply. I could have called even bigger ones, he assured, but you decided that Zoro may not appreciate your efforts. Robin cut in with fake innocence. Nami's sweat dropped. Both Usopp and Chopper exchanged fearful glances. This is Zoro's underwear, is it not? Robin clarified with amusement. Usopp swallowed thickly. He quickly looked around, as if checking that Zoro wasn't lurking by the corners. If anyone asks, this was not my doing, he stated skittishly. He all but rushed to the galley, not sparing another second. Ah, wait for me, Chopper screamed. He hurriedly followed his example. Nami, now fully in possession of her usual morning headache, shook her head. Oh, Robin, are they morons by nature or are they trying to drive me crazy? Well, they sure are lovely, Nami, Robin answered. Her smile was warm with fondness. Yo-ho-ho-ho. If there is anyone lovely in this beautiful world, it would be you, my dear ladies. Brook exclaimed. He jumped from the stairs and bowed to the females, sweeping floor with his hat. Please do excuse my rudeness, but While the day is so very nice, the air is fresh and Zoro-sen unwillingly inspired me to ask this question. He looked up with a glint in his eye socket. Can I please see your panties? No, you pervert, roared the navigator. She cracked her fist against Brooke's ribcage. Oh, pervert, was someone calling me, maybe? Came a hopeful cry from Frankie. His broad frame squeezed through the hatch to his workplace. He was smudged with grime and carried a large, perfectly round spot of soot around his left eye. It was making him resemble a not very cute and rather square panda. I heard you from my place. This morning enthusiasm is suuu, purr. He proudly struck a pose. Nami stared. She didn't spare a comment besides another round of sighing. Let's go to the kitchen, she offered. I don't want the biggest idiot on this ship to come running and stamp on me in the process. Speaking of which, Robin engaged. I wonder where he is. It's not like Luffy to be late for breakfast. Before anyone could make another remark, the door to the galley suddenly opened. Sanji flew past them and rushed to the females, twirling like a noodle. My fairest angels. He exclaimed. You make my humble self proud to have such flawless creatures descend from my cooking. He irritably glanced at the rest of the crew. And you, uneducated bastards. When will you drag your lazy asses up, huh? I apologize, Sanji. We were admiring turtles that Usopp summoned, Robin explained. Robin Kwan, Nami Swan. I could never get angry with you. They walked to the galley and occupied seats by the table, with Sanji fawning over the females. They started talking and bantering in their usual manner. When Zoro came in after a short while, however, his forehead creased in confusion. Where's Luffy? He asked. He immediately noticed the absence of his captain. You were right. Usopp frowned, now that it became so very blatant. Why is he missing? That's weird, Nami agreed. I didn't hear him rampaging this morning. Where might he be? Brooke got genuinely worried. Not to point out the obvious, but it's not like him to skip breakfast, pointed out the obvious Frankie. Now that I think about it, I didn't need to defend food for the ladies, Sanji mused. He looked at the ceiling with furrowed swirls of eyebrows. Zoro's scowl deepened. He was unnerved by this mysterious disappearance. Whatever, he grunted. He probably got tangled in sheets and couldn't get out of his bed. Not like it would be the first time it happened, he added with a sigh. I'll go and get him. Good luck. And please never come back, Marimo, Sanji bid him farewell. After a pointed look from the swordsman, he deftly ignored him and turned to the ladies. Now, my sweetest, would you like some tea or would you rather have milk with honey, my honey? In the meantime, Zoro got lost twice and found the boys' room on the third try. By now a tad bit irritated, he pushed the door open and noticed Luffy laying in his hammock. He couldn't see his face, as the boy was still under blankets, but it was enough to make Zoro cringe. The captain apparently decided to sleep in. To make the swordsman search for his skinny ass while he had fun in dreamland. Well, as you make your bed, so you must lie in it. The green-haired man grinned. He walked to the bell, which was hanging on the wall, and attacked the clapper. The ruckus that followed was truly fearsome. It was so loud it could wake up a deaf person and it seemed to last for eternity, but Luffy refused to budge. Just how stubborn was he? Oi, Luffy, Zoro growled. His ears were ringing. Certainly Luffy was affected by the noise as well. So why didn't he come flying out of hammock? Luffy, do you plan to go for breakfast any time today? Or maybe I should eat your share? The man added with a smirk. But the smirk disappeared as fast as it came. Zoro took a long look at his captain. His mischievousness left him when the boy remained perfectly still. Luffy, he repeated. Zoro. There was a small, tired voice coming from beneath the blankets. The older man walked closer and touched them gently. Hey, Luffy, what's the matter? He asked. He rubbed circles on the bony shoulder he felt under sheets. You doing okay? Hurts. Zoro, it hurts, the boy moaned. His form curled into an even smaller ball. The obvious weakness scared the fearless swordsman, even though he did not admit it. Easy, buddy, I'm here with you. What's hurting? Don't know. Everything. Zoro's heart missed a beat. The voice of his captain was weak and pleading. It was begging to make it stop, to take the pain away, to help. What do you mean, Luffy? Surely not everything. The bigger man asked. I don't know. It hurts, Zoro. It hurts. The boy squirmed some more and a pair of big, glassy eyes looked at his friend for the first time this morning. The man gasped. Those eyes were screaming at the swordsman. Bloodshot and tired, they belonged more to a sick teenager than their unwavering captain. But the worst was a silent message they carried. Message that Luffy couldn't deal with it, that Luffy was failing. He needed a doctor now. Bordering on panic, the bigger man placed his hands under the small boy. He lifted him with no effort and cradled him to his chest. The raven felt hot even through the blankets. He seemed to be shivering as well. What became obvious as Zoro held Luffy close. Easy, Luffy. I've got you, the swordsman promised. Hang on. Zoro did what he knew to be best. Protecting his friend from tremors during his hasty running, he took him straight to the galley. He didn't get lost even once, didn't sidetrack even a little. And when he kicked the door to the galley, Luffy was limp in his arms.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, Hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Chopper. Luffy's hand, which fell from underneath the blanket, was shaking. It was covered in a vicious net of fiery lines and he was gasping for breath. Everyone stiffened, drinking in the terrible sight. Luffy made a tortured sound. The Straw Hats' hearts forgot to beat and their world trembled, and then turned into crumbs. Chapter 2. Go through the waiting, feel anxiety consume us. There was a long, deafening silence. If one were to claim that it lasted forever, none of the Straw Hats would have argued. Well, maybe except for Zoro. He was the one who, driven by panic and needed to help Luffy, called out again. Chopper, what are you doing? Come here quick. And just like that the spell was broken. Zoro, take him to the infirmary, now, ordered the little doctor. He immediately jumped off the chair and hurried after the swordsman. The latter, not one to waste a second in a queue to save his captain, was already leaving the galley. If the crew noticed his cured sense of direction, no comment was given. Was that? Nami gasped, shocked by the situation. Luffy, what happened to him? Frankie shouted, equally unnerved. Is he sick? Is he dying? Usopp panicked. He is not dying, you stupid moron. Sanji roared. Brook was silent, his bones looking milkier in color, as if he paled in fear for his captain. His jaw was shaking. Luffy-san, he managed to whisper. A dull thud of a book being put down on the table was perceived almost as loud as a gunshot. Robin stood up, composed if not slightly stiff, and turned towards the door of the galley. Let's check on him, she said shortly. And just like that, the anxious crew fell into step after her lead. It seemed like they walked for a mile, these few steps they took. Their hearts were either frozen with fear or beating madly. They gathered in front of the sickbay, where they hesitated. They could hear muffled sounds from the inside, rustling of fabrics, Chopper's commands, and Zoro's single grunt. What was that? Usopp spoke in hoarse voice. They resigned themselves to aimlessly standing outside. Even though they wanted answers, the crew knew better than to interrupt. What was what? Sanji engaged, lighting a cigarette. His hands were shaking. Ah, so you noticed that, too? Frankie asked. He sent the sniper a look of comprehension. What was there to notice? Nami muttered. She seemed slightly angered by their shared secret, an emotion she could deal better with rather than worry. What are you talking about? His hand, Brook replied. His hand. It was strange, Usopp murmured. Looked weird, he tried to explain. He bit down on his nails, visibly unnerved by the mental image. It was like fire burning in his arteries, Frankie added. Not such a super feeling, if you ask me. It was indeed quite disturbing to see, Robin agreed. She gave a steady look to the door of the infirmary. I don't remember hearing about anything similar. Hand, on fire. Nami summed up. She seemed shocked by the revelation. What could cause that? It definitely doesn't sound like a stupid cold or a stomachache, Usopp said. And Luffy doesn't fall sick like that. What if it's something serious? You know it's serious, don't you? Easy, Usopp. Nami shouted. He will be fine, you'll see. It's not like there is anything Chopper cannot cure. The crew felt slightly better after this exclamation. Most of them believed that Chopper could handle any disease, be it complicated or rare. But, Robin spoke up. Her soft voice made them shudder. It might be different. Even the best doctors become helpless, against the unknown. The Straw Hats looked at her in shock. And just like that, their hearts sank, dread spread. They slowly turned towards the door of the infirmary and a single thought was shared among them. This wooden door, so normal and so simple, suddenly looked heavy. It was like a gate to another world, to the world they feared to enter. They were strangely peaceful, the hours that followed. The ship was rocking gently. Turtles could be heard splashing in the water. The air felt fresh, cool, pleasant breeze was blowing and light was falling on the deck like liquid amber, soaking it with its color. The afternoon was approaching. The Straw Hats didn't enjoy beautiful weather. They were suffocating with worry, and almost cried out with relief when Chopper showed. He stayed with them only for a while. He said that Luffy was fine, unconscious, but stable. But there are still things I don't understand, the reindeer added. His forehead was furrowed. He was looking down, so he missed worried expressions of the others. Ah, I must run more tests. He shouted. He rushed to his office, consumed by that idea. The anxious crew sat back down. Their silence was rarely interrupted. Twice or thrice Sanji asked whether the ladies and the rest wanted something to eat or drink, as they barely touched their breakfast. Nami dully agreed to a cup of coffee. It was now resting in her hands, not tasted even once. Beside her, Frankie was sipping cola from a bottle. It didn't feel as super as always, for some reason. It was an hour before Chopper came out. He was shuffling his feet, looking tired. It was still nothing in comparison to Zoro, who was walking behind him. The swordsman would appear normal to any stranger, stoic and strong, with his back kept straight. But his friends knew better. His eyes held additional shadows, the frown above them a tad bit deeper. His shoulders were slouched slightly but oh so obviously, as if some weight was set on them. And it was, the crew realized. With the captain's sickness, it was their shared responsibility to keep Luffy and themselves out of danger. Zoro, however, was too protective. He would try to carry the biggest burden and keep them safe, to his best. He was, however, helpless against the sickness. He couldn't change anything, no matter how he struggled. What was left for him to do? Shall he pray to God he did not believe in for the illness to be nothing serious? The crew registered his state in silence. It was Usopp who spoke at last. So, how is he, Chopper? He asked fearfully. He was casting short, nervous glances between the doctor and the swordsman. Well, he is resting, Chopper sighed. He woke up a few times, but it's impossible for him to stay conscious for long. But I did gather some information. It's still too little, though. I'll do more tests soon. Too little? What do you mean? Nami tried to clarify. He will tell you later, Zoro promised. He knew how tired the doctor was and didn't want the crew to weary him further. Sanji's eyebrows twitched. Ignoring a beautiful lady. Bastard Marimo, he growled. He would never ever admit that, but Sanji actually agreed with Mosshead. There was finality in the swordsman's voice. He seemed to know what was best, at that moment. We should let him sleep. Luffy, that is, Zoro spoke. And you, he added, taking in expressions of every straw hat. Why don't you go back to the galley? You can talk there. What? No, I'm not moving from here, Nami declared, crossing her arms against her chest. That's right. Usopp backed her up. We can sit in the infirmary and just go, the swordsman growled. He shot at the duo his chilling gaze and Usopp shrieked, hiding behind the navigator. The fuck, shitty mossbrain. Sanji snapped. Don't raise your voice at Nami Swan. What about you, Zoro-san? Brook asked. He noticed that the green-haired man showed no intention of moving from the infirmary. I will. The swordsman paused, taking a glance at the room behind him. I will stay. Fierce protectiveness that flashed in his eye was enough for the answer. Zoro needed to be with his captain. Maybe not as much for Luffy's sake, but rather for his own. Zoro is right, Chopper said. The Straw Hats turned to look at him instead. We should go to the galley. I'll tell you what we know about Luffy's condition. It was a signal they needed. Most of them headed in the pointed direction, so that only the cook and the swordsman were left behind. Sanji, what are you doing? Come with us, Nami called out, noticing his strange behavior. In a second, Nami Swan. The blonde man promised. The girl twisted her mouth in puzzlement. She decided not to ask, however, and disappeared in the galley. Sanji composed himself. He gave a long, measuring look to his rival. Stupid Marimo. Bossing us around, he murmured without venom, eyeing him knowingly. You better not be hiding anything from us, you hear? We deserve to know the truth just as much you do, he growled. He threw a finished cigarette over the railing and followed after the others. The swordsman watched him go. The cook sighed, running one hand through his fair hair. If he guessed that Zoro hid something grave about their captain, he didn't let it show. Chapter 3. Watch, listen, think carefully, let the lies twist your senses. He was motionless, sitting like a grim statue, teeth slightly bared and one hand on his swords, back against the wall, rigid, tense, with muscles knotted. He was waiting. Zoro didn't let himself get a break. It felt like ages ago since he found his captain, and the tension and anticipation became almost painful. But he couldn't relax. He wouldn't relax. He was ready to catch every change in the air and any move to the prone body beside him. It must have been very quiet, to any other person, but the swordsman knew better. He wasn't disturbed by normal sounds, like waves breaking on thousand sunny or muffled voices. The great part of his attention was drawn to Luffy, of course, but it wasn't quite there either. There was something else. Something different. If one were to ask the swordsman what it was, he would give no answer. He didn't truly understand it himself. He just knew. It made his sense of dread swell in the captain whimper mere seconds ago, and that was more than enough to inject Zoro with special caution. So he listened. Waited. Somewhere on his right, the captain stirred in his sleep. So, what exactly is wrong with him? This was the question they all wanted answers for. They were sitting around the table, with Frankie's massive body located on the sofa. Chopper was squirming at the center of attention. He was fidgeting on a chair and nervously kicking his small legs, making a clicking sound when they met. Well, he said slowly. I'm not really sure. There was a long pause among them. Not sure. Usopp repeated in disbelief. How can you not be sure? Yeah, how can that be? Frankie didn't understand. You must have some sort of theory, right? Chopper bro is too super of a doctor not to handle some stupid disease. I just don't know. The little reindeer squeezed his eyes shut. He seemed agitated and slightly irritated with his lack of information. He didn't react to the praise either, the crew noticed. But, it's complicated. There are tendencies I must observe. I can't make a full diagnosis without that. Chopper, can you go over what you have learned so far? Robin asked gently. The little doctor looked at her with a nervous, weary expression. I'll try, he promised. He took a deep breath and prepared for explanation. It was a difficult process, but with visible effects. The smallest crewmate took a few moments to gather himself, and before they knew, the air around him changed. Now, before the Straw Hats, was sitting their amazing Dr. Tony Chopper, the best medic to be in the future and authority in all health problems they could encounter. He was also their loyal, wonderful friend, and they held the greatest trust in his judgment. I have ran a lot of tests, he said, and established a few things. First, let's go through what you probably noticed. When Zoro brought Luffy in, you could see the whiteness of his skin and the angry red of his blood vessels. But before we made it to the infirmary, he looked almost back to normal. He was also running a fever of 40.8 Celsius degrees *105.44 Fahrenheit. 40.8, Nami repeated. She blanched at the revelation. That's a terrible fever. Yes, Nami would know that best, Chopper agreed. He remembered her state on Drum Island and how much pain it caused her. But it's slightly different with Luffy's physique. He is rubber, after all, the sniper mused. Exactly, Chopper complimented. Usopp sent him a small smile. While 40.8 is still very high, Luffy could handle that better than any of us. He is Luffy, after all. Our captain certainly is amazing, Brook said proudly. They all agreed, feeling warmth at the thought of their beloved boy. Was there anything he couldn't do? Surely not. Back to the topic. The reindeer cleared his throat. He hated to interrupt this precious moment, but there was still a lot ahead. Think about Luffy in Gear Second. When he uses it, he gives increased amount of oxygen and nutrients to his muscles. Well, I believe it was pretty similar today. His heart was pumping blood so fast that blood vessels seemed to be on fire. The question is, why would his body behave like that? What was it trying to move with blood? What do you mean, Chopper-san? Brook asked. Could you please explain? The doctor nodded. I'm concerned about Luffy's hormone levels. I believe it's hormones and answering substances that are circulating in Luffy's body. What? Usopp frowned at the word. Hormones. They are used for regulation. Even a small change too.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Their amount is enough to cause extensive response in corresponding areas. The humans cringed at his phrasing. So, for example, Sanji tried to understand, if we have too many growth hormones, we will grow to be giants. And if there is too little, we would be short. Like Luffy after using Gear Third, you mean? Frankie added. Well, Chopper's sweat dropped. It's not like you will suddenly become bigger than real giants or shrink, or anything, but it does work more or less like that. It's not its only function, though. Hormones control various processes and their name does not always tell what they do. Oh, he gasped. But Luffy does have too many growth hormones. Aha, so he will become a giant. Usopp exclaimed. He and Frankie got strangely excited. No, he will not. Nami disagreed, smacking the poor sniper. And why would you be happy about that? Nami is right. Luffy won't grow that big, unfortunately. Chopper frowned in disappointment. And why would you be sad about that, too? The redhead wondered. Still, the reindeer gave his head a firm shake, casting away daydreams. I determined increased activity of Luffy's hypothalamus and pituitary gland. These are control centers of the endocrine system, which is where hormones are produced and distributed. By the use of thyrotropin releasing and then thyrotropin stimulating hormones, it stimulates the thyroid gland, which is mainly responsible for the metabolism. Stop, please stop. Usopp cut it. Could you speak in a language we understand? He moaned. He, as well as most of the crewmates, were already dealing with headaches. Don't worry. Dr. Chopper answered. It will be clear in a minute. Insulin and glucagon. Oh hell no. More hormones. The sniper complained. Yes, but it's fairly easy. Maybe for you, Brainiac bro, Frankie snickered. Chopper ignored his comment. Let's just say, he continued, that insulin gives us means to grow if we eat well. Glucagon ensures that we don't run out of energy and fall into a coma. We could complain about how tired we are and spend all day in bed, but we would still have the means to complain, and that is our brain working. Zero glucagon is like having zero cola. Frankie wondered out loud. You could say that. It's all very interesting, Chopper, Sanji lied, avoiding the hopeful look from the reindeer. But what does that mean for our moronic captain? Oh, well, Luffy has far too much insulin, growth and thyroid hormones. And glucagon is almost absent. I'm concerned because usually there is a good balance, but in Luffy's case it simply isn't working. His control organs aren't reacting properly. It's like, well, they make sure that all energy Luffy gets will be used for his growth. So, said Brook very, very slowly, is Luffy-san finally developing, well, a more manly figure? No. Chopper looked crestfallen. I wish it was that easy. The crew was silent. But there must be a reason. The reindeer added. I also discovered one last thing. There are areas in Luffy's body that are unnaturally active. The line along his spine and are present on his head, in place of tuber frontale. His what? Nami moaned. Tuber frontale. These are two elevations on everybody's forehead. They are bigger in children and females, but Luffy's are enlarged. Wait, please wait. Usopp exclaimed. You are saying that Luffy is like a young female. What? Of course not. Don't be silly, Usopp. The doctor snorted. It's just a rare phenomenon, that's all. It still doesn't sound very comforting, Chopper, Sanji noticed. He sighed, lighting his fifth cigarette. I know. But you, Sanji, shouldn't be smoking so much, Chopper warned, worried as a friend but still speaking with medical authority. It's bad for your lungs. I have already told you. Sorry, Chopper. It's just. The cook extended his free arm, as if trying to show something vast and searching for best words to describe it. It's a lot to take in. The crew was in agreement once again. You mentioned some theory, Chopper, Usopp reminded. Why did Luffy get like that? And what's going to happen to him? Can you? No. The reindeer yelled. The crew was stunned. Did their sweet, innocent friend raise voice at them? I mean. The doctor stammered, embarrassed by his reaction. It's just, you shouldn't know. Not yet. Not when I'm not sure. Not now, definitely not. He decided, clenching his hooves and squeezing eyelids so tightly that a tear escaped them. Whoa, reindeer bro, chill out, Frankie asked softly. He raised his massive hand in a comforting gesture. Will you understand if you don't want to talk about it, Usopp promised. He stood next to his distressed friend, unsure how to settle him down. But, we need to know. If there is anything going on with Luffy. Please tell us, Chopper, Robin agreed, giving him a steady, confident look. I'm with, genius goddess Robin Kwan, and the shit knows, oi, over there, Sanji assured, twirling in praise for the woman and aiming a dismissive wave of hand at the sniper. Yeah, we want that, bro. Frankie exclaimed. The doctor raised his head, looking troubled. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, he whispered. I can be wrong. Maybe there is no need to worry. Oh, Chopper, Nami said quietly. She scooted near the reindeer and started stroking his back. Take example of our captain, worrying us all like that. You must be more selfish, sometimes. Please do tell, Chopper-san, Brook pleaded, hating to trouble his friend. The reindeer sighed. I repeat, it's just a theory, he spoke up at last. When Luffy's blood was flowing so incredibly fast, some parts of his body turned red, and some became almost white. It was as if the blood was unable to get there. But why, Chopper? Nami didn't understand it. Why would that happen? Well, Chopper hesitated. That's because of those ridiculous growth areas. Luffy directs a huge amount of nutrients only to those places. Along his spine, on his forehead and near his eyes. But the rest of Luffy's body suffers from a shortage. A severe shortage. And, how dangerous is that? Usopp searched for explanation. Is it like feeling tired all over? No, Usopp, the doctor disagreed. His face twisted into stony expression. For his comrades it was still easy to pick up pain in his eyes, raging and burning to his core. I'm afraid it's worse, he whispered. If there are nutrients lacking, body becomes exhausted, emaciated, and if it's as extensive and as bad as in Luffy's case. Chopper looked at them all. The person dies. Quote dies. Luffy can die of this. Zoro, Luffy whined, his voice raspy. He turned to the older man with his big, expressive eyes. Make them stop. Make who stop, Luffy? Zoro asked. His hand stopped caressing the boy's hair and a sense of foreboding boiled in his stomach. Them, Zoro. They are talking, loudly. Who is talking? The swordsman repeated. I hear nothing. No one is talking. It wasn't quite right. He heard muffled voices through the wall to the galley, so quiet that barely audible. He didn't understand how Luffy could find them disturbing. They are agitated, Zoro, the boy whispered. A strange, confused expression appeared on his face. His eyelids were dropping and he started slipping back to sleep. You are imagining things, Zoro insisted. He smoothed out the sheets and resumed his gentle petting, thinking that Luffy was too out of it to remember it later. Just rest. I've got you. Oh, you do, the boy mumbled half-consciously. Zoro gave a soft hum. He swept his gaze over the thin body, finally meeting the tired eyes of his companion. There was an eerie look in them. It was unnerving for the swordsman. You are just imagining things, he repeated. But Zoro, the boy pleaded. They are getting really loud. And they are talking about death, too. They are really annoying. Zoro's eyes widened. His hand in Luffy's hair stilled. It's really hard to sleep like that, Luffy murmured. I must tell them not to touch anyone. His eyes closed slowly. My nakama, he added softly. Contrary to his words, his breathing evened out and in the next second he drifted away. But his faithful companion didn't bat an eyelid. He was livid. What was making Luffy sick? What was making him think about his friends dying and haunting him in illness? Don't worry, Luffy, Zoro said as calmly as possible. The crew is safe. And I will protect you, Captain. Just sleep soundly. His touched the boy's forehead, checking for fever. And if his other hand clenched painfully on Watto, he didn't notice. And if he felt a shadow of fear, so sickening that he trembled, there were only the two of them in the sickbay. And no one gave a comment. Die. What do you mean, die? That cannot be, Chopper. Oh God, please no. Nami whimpered. Please, Chopper, please. It's just, no. Say it wouldn't happen. Because it wouldn't, alright. Usopp asked in a breaking voice. You joker, you tried to scare us, didn't you? It was a good one, haha. Not even close to my genius, but a good one. Right, Chopper. It was a joke, yes. Chopper bro, Chopper-san, quote. Chopper, quote. Quote. Shit, Zoro, Luffy murmured in his sleep. I can't hear them. I feel them. Tell them, Zoro. Tell them for me. Say that I'll be okay. Shit, What do you recommend, Chopper? Robin asked. What do we do now? Well, the reindeer drew his breath in, we do nothing. He was given long, astonished looks from the crew. Quote. Nothing. Is that what you said? Care to repeat, Chopper? Nami asked, full of disbelief. I'm not happy about it, the doctor protested. There is just, not much we can work on. Not without more information. But what are you suggesting, Chopper? Usopp cried out. That we sit patiently while Luffy suffers. Easy, sniper bro. Frankie cut in. You know that our super doctor isn't cold-hearted. Thank you, Frankie. But Usopp is right, the reindeer whimpered. I truly do not like it. Not at all. I hate this situation, really. He sobbed, eyes watery from held in tears. I want Luffy happy and healthy, and I want to play with him, and have him lead us to our next adventures. And have him close and smiling. But I can't. We can't. Waiting is all we can do now. He exclaimed. Fat droplets finally fell from his eyes and he wept, curling in on himself. Chopper, Nami whispered. Waiting is our only option, the reindeer repeated. He pulled the rim of his hat down, covering more of his face. Luffy is bound to be exhausted, so we must make sure he doesn't move around. And we should give him plenty of nutrients. And, I don't think that he is strong enough to get up, but it's Luffy after all. So let's make sure that he stays in bed. It's doctor's recommendation, Chopper ordered as he straightened up, pointing a hoof at the humans. The crew was shocked into silence. Then their expressions melted and they smiled, proud of their doctor. Aye, Chopper doc. Frankie saluted. I'll take care of food, Sanji reassured, flipping his cigarette. This shitty rubber won't run out of meat ever again. He better be grateful. That's right, Nami said brightly. Endless pit or not, Sanji will stuff Luffy good. Of course, Nami Swan. The cook promised, wiggling like a caterpillar. Robin graced them with a melodious giggle. Frankie struck a pose, commenting on how super everything will be and asking for a limitless supply of cola as well. Sanji kicked him in refusal. Brook produced his violin out of nowhere and started playing, while Usopp exclaimed that he will help defeat any illness, curable or not. Chopper smiled tenderly. He loved his nakama. The Straw Hats noticed his smile and felt relief spread among them. Joy and hope suited the little reindeer more than tears and helplessness. And if they had to tie their captain to a bed and watch over him night and day, they would make sure to do just that. Captain or not, Luffy was going to behave. And somehow, through the sickness and fear, they would pull through. Chapter 4. It was a long day for the Straw Hats. After sitting with Luffy till the sunset, they agreed to take shifts in the sickbay and return to their quarters. They knew they needed sleep. Sanji groaned in irritation. He was laying on his bunk, trying to finally get some rest. He heard Usopp grunting and turning in his bed. He could also see an overshadowed, hunched figure of Frankie in the corner. The cyborg was mindlessly moving fingers over his instrument, never touching any string. He had his sunglasses on even in the darkness. Sanji sighed. He guessed that their shipwright was more worried than he let on. Marimo was absent. Of course he was. The cook wasn't surprised that Cactus had abandoned the idea of sleep and remained by his captain. What a loyal fool he was. But Brook seemed almost as bad. He kept standing at the door for a few hours now. He was gripping it with his bony hand, keeping it open. His face was pressed into the opening and his unmoving, eyeless gaze was glued to the infirmary. How is he? He asked. The unexpected question made Sanji shudder. He must be fine, he grunted. He lifted himself to a sitting position, admitting that there was no way in hell that he would fall asleep. Why don't you rest already? I can't, the musician answered. It would feel like betraying him, somehow. Bullshit, Sanji said. He searched for cigarettes, needing a smoke. You know how Luffy is. He won't be happy if one of us gets sick. Besides, we must get a grip or we will just grow tired and useless. He needs us to recover. Frankie looked up from his guitar. I don't see you resting, bro. Well, Sanji waved his hand in a small circle. This is Luffy we're talking about. He's bounced back from worse than this. Let's have some faith in our captain, Usopp smiled a tight, forced smile. Of course I believe in Luffy, he said. But just admit, we are all crazy with worry. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't take it anymore. The liar grabbed his pillow and stomped to the door, squeezing it under his armpit. Brook finally budged. He stepped aside, letting him pass. I'm going to the infirmary, the sniper said. He turned in the doorway and looked at the others. I understand I can't help, I do. His voice trembled with emotion. I know, but it's better than nothing. Sanji's eyebrows rose to his hairline. He watched as Usopp marched out of the room, and then released a heavy sigh. Well, he asked. Frankie sent him a smirk. You know, bro, he answered. He lifted his massive body to a standing position. We wouldn't be sleeping today anyway. Not with our captain on our minds, no. The cook smiled around a cigarette. Speak for yourself. I think only about the ladies. Yo-ho-ho-ho. But they don't seem to share your sentiment, Sanji-san. Look. Brook pointed a finger to the outside. Nami-san and Robin-san are going to the sickbay. True to his words, the women were already climbing stairs to the infirmary. When the males left their room and silently walked in the same direction, Nami turned around with a surprised expression. Robin simply smiled. Taking a stroll at this hour? She asked in a conspiracy tone. Frankie gave thumbs up. It's never too late to visit Nakama. Friendship is super. Not so loud. The ginger hissed. If Luffy is sleeping, you'll wake him up. Frankie opened his mouth in an, oh, of understanding. Nami ignored him and Sanji, Nami Swan, so thoughtful, and stood beside Usopp, who was lingering in front of the sickbay. They exchanged long glances. Well, knock already, the girl huffed. The sniper cleared his throat and raised a fist, but it wasn't necessary. Before he could do anything, there was a click and the door opened. A small figure appeared in the doorway. Chopper looked up at them, his beady eyes shining in understanding. There was no surprise in his expression. He is resting, he said quietly. They didn't need clarification who he was. As they silently stepped into the sickbay, their gazes were drawn to the bed with Luffy in a chair beside it, where Zoro was sitting. The swordsman was calm. He greeted everyone with a steady look of a green eye. Judging by the aura around him, the Straw Hats knew that everything was under control. He is sleeping. No incidents, Zoro gave a short update. Some of the crew nodded. They let out the breaths they didn't know they were holding and lowered themselves to the floor. Sanji came in last. He threw away his cigarette and leaned against the wall, watching as Chopper tiptoed to his chair. The little reindeer hopped on it and gave it a little spin. Well, you seem happy, the cook noticed. The reindeer nodded. I am. It's looking better, he said in a whisper. Maybe Luffy will be okay in no time. Of course, he definitely will, Robin admitted with warm expression. Chopper's eyes sparkled. They spent the next few hours in a relative silence. Even though they tried to avoid it, their gazes kept coming back to a prone figure on the bed. And Luffy. The view he presented was admittedly scary. The boy looked frighteningly thin and small, even under the covers. Ghost of breaths were slipping past his parted lips, soft and almost silent. The Straw Hats were listening to them closely. They knew there was no need to constantly check if the boy did keep breathing, but they couldn't help slight paranoia. It was a long time before they succumbed to exhaustion. Nami and Usopp were the first ones. They slid down the wall, tilting towards themselves and resting against each other. Chopper dozed on the edge of his chair. He wanted to stay awake and keep watch over Luffy, but his eyelids closed on their own. Zoro stood up and lifted him before he could fall, and gently placed him in the corner. Frankie and Brook weren't moving. The cyborg's eyes were hidden by sunglasses and the skeleton's eyes were non-existent, but Zoro heard their snores. Robin was also fighting a losing battle. She drifted away in a graceful position, head resting on hands clasped together. Sanji quietly retrieved blankets from a closet. He covered her and Nami, and then returned to his place by the headboard. Soon enough he also fell asleep. You gave us quite a fright. We're restless without you, came a whisper from the swordsman. He brought his chair just a little closer to the captain. You must come back to us. Come back strong. He crossed his arms against his chest. He tried to continue his guarding duty and stay attentive. It was fairly late when he noticed black spots creeping in his vision. He gave his head a shake, but it was of no use. The world turned dark before he knew it. Zoro's body slumped with gravitation. His muscular frame rested on his captain's legs, covered by the blankets. Every crewmate was unconscious. Apart from the snores, it became silent in the infirmary. Even Sunny seemed to cease rocking, with sea calm and as smooth as a table. There was close to no movement. That is, until Luffy stirred. The morning came far too quickly. Nami sat up, hearing her back crack in protest. Usopp, that's disgusting. She made a wry face when she found a patch of wetness on her cheek, which was identified as the sniper's saliva. Wake up, she ordered. She shook him by his neck. Usopp mumbled some incoherent words and Nami let him go. Discover more. Books. Writing software. Anime fan fiction. Subscription box for writers. Games fan fiction. Author resources. Fan fiction mobile. Book. Editing services. Fanfiction merchandise. Why on earth were we sleeping together? She wondered. She looked around and remembered. Of course, they spent night in the sickbay. Other Straw Hats were also coming round. They were sitting up from the strangest positions on the floor, woken up by the yelling. Usopp blinked his bleary eyes. He was brutally brought back from a dreamland by Nami's fist, which descended on his stomach. Arg, Nami, what's your problem? He shouted. Why did you hit me? Don't argue with Nami Swan, shitty nose, Sanji warned. He shot at the sniper a glare too full of drowsiness to be menacing. Whatever you did, she must be right to hit you. I didn't do anything, Usopp protested. I was only sleeping. Well, not anymore, he added and threw Nami a pointed gaze. He was fast to backpedal when she returned at full force. Okay, you win, you win. I'm sorry. What's with the ruckus? The Straw Hats froze. Slowly, almost stiffly, all heads turned towards the owner of the voice. Luffy was sitting on the bed, wearing a confused expression. His round eyes landed on Zoro. Nay, can Zoro move a little? He asked, seeing as Zoro was still on his legs. You are kinda heavy. The older man remained rooted to a spot. He was kneeling by the bed, with shocked gaze glued to his captain. Luffy, he rasped out. What is that on your head? The Raven looked up. What? Hair. Silly Zoro, do you see me with Boshi so much that you forgot what my hair looks like? You guys are so funny. He laughed, seeing his friend's shocked expressions. Here. He took his hat, which was neatly placed on a cabinet. Now it'll be better. He plopped Boshi down on his scalp. But Boshi didn't stay there. Luffy was surprised when his hat fell off, as if pushed by some object. He quickly caught it and moved it back on top. But no, his hat was also stubborn. It slid down again. Annoyed, the boy huffed and kept it firmly atop of his head. He thought that maybe if he waited long enough, Boshi would give up and remain in place. After a long moment, Luffy carefully removed his hold. Boshi didn't budge. Satisfied, the rubber man smiled and moved his hand to lower it, and then, Luffy felt growing confusion when his fingers met something hard and smooth. He ran them up and down along the object, finding it to be long and pointy, stretching up to 8 inches above him. Strange. He moved his hand back down again. Whatever the mysterious object was, it was connecting with his forehead. What could it be? He moved his hand a little to the right and found that there wasn't one, but 2 sticks stuck in his head. The hell? Guys, Luffy addressed his stupefied crew. It's not hair, is it? Sanji, still in a state of shock, stumbled to a closet and grabbed a mirror. He tossed it to his captain. Fighting tremors running through his body, Luffy slowly raised the mirror to his face. All right, he was slightly pale, but looked rather normal. There were also 2 thin trickles of blood, ending in clotted pools on his eyebrows. And then, following the trail of red, Luffy gasped, covering his mouth in surprise. He had horns. Black, symmetrical and elegant, pointing upwards in graceful, curved columns. Legitimate horns. They appeared black, but when the boy turned his head at the right angle, he could see they were in deep, dark green color, rather than black as his hair was. So he grew horns. How? None of his friends had ones. Oh no, wait. You see, from Dressrosa definitely did, but Luffy wasn't a bull, as far as he knew. Or was he? Arg, his mind was going to explode from thinking. Luffy let his bangs cover his face. The crew felt a rush of worry, thinking that their captain was overwhelmed with situation. He had to be terrified. Oi, shitty captain, you all right there? Sanji asked in concern. Luffy-san, Brook added. Luffy, Zoro said quietly. He tried to look at the boy's eyes, noticing that he started trembling. The swordsman's heart broke for his younger buddy. Hey, it's not that bad. Chopper will definitely find a way to. Yahoo! Luffy shouted. Everybody jumped backwards, startled by his yelling. Before anyone could react, the boy scrambled off the bed and fell on the floor. He quickly collected himself and ran to the door, somehow getting sheets draped around his legs and pulling them with him. I have horns. I have horns. How cool is that? He charged outside and laughed merrily. Ups, he said, finally noticing the mess dragged behind him. But it wasn't only the sheets trailing in his footsteps. Oh, are these wings and a tail? And sure enough, there were wings. Black and curled up, they were growing from the top of his shoulder blades, extending to more or less half of his back. Though small, they had unmistakable skeleton and a dark membrane stretched on its structure. There was also a long tail with a triangular tip, swaying casually behind the captain. The latter stared at it with unreadable expression. Oh, he said finally. Guys, he looked up at his dumbfounded crew. I think I might have a problem. And so all hell broke loose. Chapter 5, see the bodies hit the floor. ... What is this? Nami breathed out. She and the rest of the crew were looking at Luffy, so intently that if a stair could drill holes, he would be full of them. The Raven smiled sheepishly. I really have no idea. He blinked innocently. It wasn't there before, was it? You moron. Sanji yelled. You have freaking horns, wings and... He paused, fuming at the tail that cheerfully swung in front of his face. How did you grow a freaking tail? Why does it end with a spade? A trident would be much more super. Frankie seemed disappointed. Is that your only concern? Nami roared. It's a nightmare. I must be dreaming, Usopp groaned. He clasped his hands as if in a prayer and raised his face towards the sky. Please, wake me up. Wake me up now. Why would you want to wake up? It's so cool. Luffy cheered, spinning around his axis. Cool, Nami repeated. You turned into. She waved her arms up and down, searching for the best definition. Into a demon, she finished, her voice breaking at the implication. So, Luffy didn't seem bothered. He span a little faster. He decided to make it a game and catch the tip of his tail, which was circling him twice and still long enough to stick out. Is that bad? Exclamation mark. Luffy. Nami fumed. Of course it's bad. Usopp shouted. It's terrible. How can you dismiss it? Oh, you must have been cursed. Are we going to die now? Is this contagious? Oh, I can feel something growing on my forehead. I feel. Oi, Zoro, Luffy addressed his faithful swordsman. He stopped playing and ignored the fainting sniper, sensing the weight of situation. He could tell that the topic was important for his friends and how shaken up most of them were. What does Zoro think? The boy asked. He tilted his head to the side. Should I be worried? Zoro blinked slowly. He locked his gaze with Luffy, meeting the boy's clear blue, trusting eyes with his only one, green and focused. He gave a little twitch of his eyebrows. I don't know, Luffy. Why don't you decide? He offered, feeling like going on a rampage and slaughtering us in our sleep. Not really. Well, any demonic relatives running amok in your family? Zoro asked. Luffy gave him an incredulous look. Right. The swordsman snickered. Wrong question. Then, are you a demon? I have no way to tell. Does it matter, anyway? Luffy didn't bother to hold back a yawn. Nah, not to me, Zoro answered. He sent his captain a devilish grin. Both him and Luffy suddenly seemed far too amused for the situation. What the fuck, Marimo? Sanji roared. He jumped to kick the swordsman, seeing as Luffy just recovered from a serious condition. Zoro blocked him with a quickly drawn Shisui. It doesn't solve our problem at all, you shitty moss brain. That's true, Robin agreed. While being a demon or not doesn't hold much of a meaning, of course it does. Nami and Usopp protested. I would like to know why Luffy transformed in the first place. And I'm worried about your health. Chopper added. He was clearly concerned about his friend's well-being. Does anything hurt? How do you feel? You shouldn't be moving so much, doctor's orders. The reindeer fussed over his captain. Luffy laughed merrily. Of course I'm okay, Chopper. You don't need to worry. And he meant it. He didn't feel half as bad as the previous day, or was it a day before yesterday? How many meals did he miss? Maybe a little drowsy and tired, but he was fine. Even though he was sure of this, he let his little doctor probe him and do his job for however long he wanted. Chopper was so committed. The best doctor in the world. Maybe you shouldn't be out in the open, Luffy-san. Brook hesitated. It's chilly in the morning. Please wear it and come back inside. He urged, carrying a blanket and draping it over Luffy's frame. It presented a rather disturbing sight with the wings bulging on his back. I'm alright, Brook. The raven smiled at him warmly. I really am. I could kick asses of 100 sea kings with my single hand. Usopp blinked at him in stupor. Fear and shock in his face slowly faded away and he smirked, relieved that Luffy seemed to be fine. Oh yeah? He asked cheekily. Maybe you could, but I bet I will take down even more. What? The captain's eyes bulged out. You are on. Let's go and duh. Their hearts stopped when Luffy suddenly tilted and started falling on the floor. Luffy. Zoro, who was the furthest of them all, moved faster than lightning. He caught the boy before his face met with desks. Luffy, he exclaimed. The raven was white as a sheet. He took shallow, quick breaths while sweat formed on his forehead. Luffy, what's wrong? Nami shouted. Everybody instantly gathered around the captain. Talk to us, bro. No, he shouldn't speak and waste energy. Chopper ordered. He swiftly pulled out a stethoscope and checked the boy's pulse. Maybe it's just too much excitement, but there may be another reason. Whichever it is, Luffy's body can handle only so much on top of everything. He needs to rest. Everybody moved when Chopper grew to his heavy point. He retrieved Luffy from Zoro, who seemed reluctant, and secured him in his arms. I'm bringing him to the infirmary. He decided. And no, Luffy, don't you look at me like that. He scolded as the boy wanted to argue. But, huff, Chopper, no. The captain moaned, while the doctor walked into the sickbay and placed him on the bed. He made sure to unfold his wings to a seemingly comfortable position. I really don't want to. HMPF. Luffy was silenced when the sheets were dragged up to his nose. He shot Chopper a wounded look. No means no, Luffy. The doctor was unfazed. He knew that his captain was pouting, even under the covers. I must run additional tests. It's unbelievable that we didn't notice you sprouting your additional body parts. It should have hurt a lot, so I need to check your natural painkillers levels and how it affected your physiology, and then let's get you cleaned up, the swordsman cut in. He wrinkled his nose in displeasure. It reeks of blood. Not much, but we should check your body and better be safe than sorry. You guys are no fun, Luffy decided. He was quickly growing tired and found himself barely keeping up with conversation. And, which of you just keeps talking and talking? I cannot recognize the voice, for some reason. He blinked blearily at the ceiling. Saying about death and stuff. The crew looked at him incredulously. Before they could question him about this horrific remark, Luffy drifted to a needed sleep. At the same time, in a majestic residence hidden deep in the woods, a corpse fell with a thump. Its murderer shot his steely gaze at the lone survivor. "That was your last guard," he announced. He held up his sword, splattering blood on the man before him. They were standing in what used to be a marvelous, spacious chamber, full of expensive furniture and detailed decoration. It must have been beautiful in its times of glory. But now disemboweled and cooling down, bodies covered every of its corners. The culprit behind the massacre, a man with no expression whatsoever, leaned over the only living resident. The latter cowered in terror. "Well," the killer spoke, "do you want to keep this up? You're little," he paused to swing his weapon, "game." The remaining blood hit the floor with a splat. "Please." The fat, blonde survivor got on his knees. "I'm begging you. I know nothing. I'm not lying, I swear." "No." Another male stepped closer. He was silver-haired and older, clearly worn out by time. "I think you are. We do have our methods, after all." "Start talking, you disgusting pig," the killer threatened. He was tall and rather young, maybe in his 30s. Unmoved and pale, with sharp features and chilling, astoundingly black eyes, he resembled Death Ripper himself. "Arg," the blond man squeaked pitifully. He stumbled backwards, searching for a door or window. He turned blue when his back met a solid wall. Please," he tried. "Just, please, I know nothing, and I'll make you regret this. I'll sue you and make your existence worse than that of a cockroach. Just step back. Go away. You'll sue us." The oldest man laughed a humorless laugh. His eyes were dead. "I doubt it, there was only a wild, dangerous glint inside them. Who creates law on this forsaken land? You. Certainly not this mass of rotting meat," his companion growled. He took one step towards the noble. "Or do dead people have any voices?" The owner of the mansion gulped in terror. The two attackers waited for a long moment. Finally the elder let out a defeated sigh. "Let's leave him be," he decided. "But, brother," the raven turned to him in shock. "What are you saying? We came all this way, we cannot allow him to get away." "He doesn't have what we are looking for," his identified brother said. He looked as if he had aged a decade in a matter of seconds. Besides, if he knew anything, he would have squeaked it out long time ago. The killer agreed with him in silence. "You got lucky," he sneered at the noble. Ignoring his loud wailing and disgraceful sobs, he addressed his companion. "What now?" "We keep searching," the latter decided. They turned towards the exit, ready to walk away. "We shall rearrange the clues and go through everything once again. Perhaps some detail escaped our attention. Or," the silver-haired man gasped. White spots exploded in his vision. He collapsed and would have fallen if his sibling didn't caught him just in time. "Brother," the raven yelled. He lifted the older male by his forearms and steered him away from a puddle of human remains, in which the eldest almost landed. The grizzled man was taking fast breaths. He pushed his brother away and leaned against a wall. "It's a vision," he said. "I saw, just now." But he didn't manage to finish. The owner of the mansion, apparently too stupid to keep out of danger, suddenly roared. He charged forward, raising a small yet deadly sword. "Die, you freaking scam!" he screeched. He twisted his mouth in a snarl and prepared the blade, step away from driving it through the eldest. The raven sprang to his feet. His katana was singing of bloody end as it sank in the offender's flesh. The wielder didn't blink, watching as its prey tore in half. "Fuck," he cursed. The lifeless body flopped on the ground. "Fuck," he repeated, though he clearly didn't give two damns about the noble's misery. "I overreacted. How are we going to drag information out of him now? I have already told you." The silver-haired tore his eyes away from the corpse. His expression was mixed between disgust and delight. At the same time, his heart was incredibly light. It was the most accomplished he felt in a long time. "I experienced another vision," he told his companion. He turned away, directing his burning gaze to a bloodied window. He tried to call forth the details of his prophecy and, yes, he remembered. He thought of a boy, small and short for his age. He imagined formidable wings, dark and outstanding. He worshipped the power they carried with every beat. He heard a sweet swish of a tail, resonating deep in his skull. He marveled at the glint of pointed horns. He recalled a slender neck, from which was dangling a worn-out strafut. He imagined how it would look wearing a collar instead. "I found our little lost sheep," he informed his brother. The younger man's eyes sparkled. "What? Where?" he demanded. Just follow me." The raven smiled in mirth. Without exchanging another word, the two men walked out of the mansion, leaving countless bodies behind. Luffy woke up with a start. He wasn't sure what disrupted his sleep, but there was a strange, urgent feeling in the back of his mind. He blinked a few times, trying to recall whatever it was. No matter how he tried, however, he no longer could. He laid still for a moment. He realized there were muffled sounds all around him. He blinked, letting his vision sharpen. He recognized the noise as his friends' voices. They were calling his name, full of worry and alarm. "I'm up," he said groggily. He wasn't aware that he groaned in pain. The voices quieted down and he heaved himself up, propping himself against a pillow. He looked around with misty gaze. "Hiya, guys," he greeted everybody. "Luffy," Nami exclaimed. Her eyes got teary despite her efforts. "You are up. Thank goodness. You made us worried, you bastard." Usopp sniffled. "How are you feeling, Luffy-san?" Brook asked in concern. The unhealthy pallor of their captain's skin made his heart clench. Even if he didn't have heart in the first place. "Luffy-san," he repeated when he got no answer. The others didn't speak. They were keeping careful watch over the silent boy, disliking how out of it he seemed. How? Luffy slowly thought it over. He was cold and strangely uncomfortable. He also felt exhausted, so very, very exhausted. He couldn't figure out why, because he spent a lot of time lying in bed. There was also an annoying tingle which kept pulsing in his back, turning into painful throbbing right where the tail and wings connected. Oh, that's right, the wings were killing him. Maybe he should start sleeping on his side from now on. The boy gave an almost inaudible sigh. He rubbed his face with the heel of his left hand, still not used to the horns and how he had to circulate fingers around them. That really needed some getting used to. And the room kept spinning and spinning. Luffy squeezed his eyes. He felt sick. "I'm just a little sore. But I'll get better," he assured his waiting friends. None of the Straw Hats believed him. They decided not to comment, however, and only Zoro sent Luffy a warning glare. "Why is Zoro frowning? You look funny." The captain laughed. He reached out to the swordsman one almost steady hand. "You should stop, or you'll get wrinkles." Luffy grinned at the man's expression. He was about to touch him when a wave of dizziness suddenly hit him. He gasped, losing balance, and fell off the bed. He would have hit the floor if it wasn't for Frankie. The cyborg quickly steadied him with his robotic palm. "Easy, bro," he warned. "You aren't super yet," he added, slackening his hold over the captain. The boy smiled sheepishly. He felt burning gazes of all of his friends and suddenly hated how vulnerable he was. He looked up, meeting concerned glare from his swordsman. "Just lay down," Zoro barked. He pushed the boy on a pillow and towered over him. His posture was gruff, but movements careful. "And don't get back up." Luffy wanted to argue, but Robin spoke out first. "You scared us, Luffy," she whispered. "When you fainted." She let the words hang in the air. She wasn't fast to admit to fear, but her voice carried the smallest hint of desperation. "That's right. Are you hurting now? Are you comfortable?" Chopper fretted. "I'm all right. This time for real, Chopper," Luffy added, gently pushing the doctor away. At this moment, he truly despised his inability in lying. He didn't want his crew worried. He tried to lighten their moods, but he made everything worse. "I could eat a sea king, though," he declared. He thought that maybe food would distract his friend's attention. "Sanji, meet Che." Right away, the blonde reassured. Sanji made it fast to return from the galley with dozens of dishes. Luffy felt confused and very surprised, but he wasn't going to question this generous treatment. He reached a shaking hand to grab a chicken. "Yay, Fest's BHEBs tastes the best." He complimented around a mouthful. Strangely enough, he wasn't all that hungry. He ignored this strange phenomenon and continued to stuff his face, wanting to act normal and feeling his energy return. Meat was the best remedy. Right after everything that Chopper made, obviously. The crew kept silent. They watched as Luffy engulfed feast big enough for 10 people, getting more and more color with every bite. They could almost believe that everything was back to normal. The image of horns, wings and a tail, however, was a constant reminder. And when they thought about Luffy rumbling about death and voices. "Ah, I'm stuffed," Luffy finally announced. He petted his swollen belly, which was still small for his gluttonous standards. "Oi, Usopp, Chopper. Want to play tag now?" "What? You must be joking," the sniper yelled. The reindeer's eyes got big with concern. "Luffy," he spoke uncertainly, "you should stay in bed. You seem all right now, but I don't know what might happen." "OWW, come on, Chopper." The boy interrupted. He pursed his lips in a pout. "I have enough of this place. I don't wanna." "Stop acting like a kid," Nami scolded. "You must listen to what your doctor says. And look at you. You're certainly not all right." But, Luffy sent a panicked look around. "But Zoro." He captured one arm of his swordsman, who was sitting on a chair beside him. "I really don't want to." "No, don't make me." He kept whining, pulling the appendage back and forth. Zoro, who without a doubt would have sliced anyone else for this treatment, just let Luffy have his way. He simply grunted to keep up appearance. "Oi, shitty brat. Just be a good, obedient captain and lay back down in bed," Sanji commanded. His angry face resembled one of an exasperated father. "No, it's boring. I'll die of boredom," Luffy wailed. He started crying crocodile tears and buried his face in Zoro's sleeve, blowing his nose rather loudly. The swordsman was disgusted. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Nami huffed. She couldn't let this pitiful display continue, feeling her resolve crack and heart going to her hurting. "Friend, stop playing around. You need to rest now. And I can tell you a story." Usopp volunteered. He plopped down on the bed, looking excited. It all started when the great, courageous Usopp Sama. I don't want a story. Luffy crossed his arms. Sorry, Usopp, maybe next time. I'm fine and I want to go on the deck and run and play and fish and eat meat and just get out. Captain's orders. The Straw Hats fumed. Fine, Nami gritted out. Have it your way, but if you collapse and die, you'll have my back. Luffy dismissed her concern. He wasn't worried. He knew his crew would keep a careful watch over him, and he had to show that he was getting better. So he jumped off the bed, staggering a little, not like he would admit it, grabbed Usopp and Chopper and dragged them out, ignoring protests. The rest of the Strafuts glared at him daggers. He is impossible, Nami exclaimed. He is, but Captain Bro has us wrapped around his finger, doesn't he? So not super, Frankie complained. Quote. Sanji lit a cigarette. Let's just keep an eye on him, Zoro decided. Just in case. The Straw Hats went outside. They occupied themselves with small tasks, stealing at their captain's secret glances. He, on the other hand, seemed as carefree as always. He was currently losing in a card game, not that he minded. He won all 7 rounds before. And apparently neither Usopp nor Chopper holding their cards in the strangest positions and letting him peek didn't leave him suspicious. He was just so good at those games. He should try to teach the others. Oh, he said suddenly. He looked up with a frown. But you didn't answer my question. Who the heck keeps talking about dying? It's starting to creep me out. The Straw Hats stiffened. What do you mean, Luffy? Nami asked. Her face lost all of its color. No one is saying anything, Robin assured, masking the small tremor in her voice. And none of us can hear it, either. You can't, the boy repeated. But I could swear. Where are the voices coming from? The swordsman interrupted. If there were anything making Luffy uncomfortable, he would slice it up. The boy looked around. He hummed to himself. I think, from there. He stood up and pointed a finger downwards, over the railing. That was when a figure jumped from the ocean, towards him. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is, What Was in the Blood by Lodowa Korona. Chapter 6. Catch the wind, let it steal you. It was quick reflexes that helped Luffy avoid collision. He bent his body backwards and swiftly stepped aside, feeling his hair blow with a furious gust of wind. He and the Straw Hats looked up in shock. Desks of atom wood creaked. A tall, bulky creature landed on the deck, slowly turning to the Raven captain. Its massive, slimy body twitched. Its head dropped with a thump to the ground, the round, tiny thing limp on the boneless neck. The beast opened its mouth in a sneer. Fuck, Frankie swore. He aimed his lasers at the animal. Just as he was about to fire, a long, spiked fin whipped at his nape. His throat rattled with a strangled scream. Before he could react, another creature rammed into his back and he was flung on the desks. He fell, limp like a rag doll. Shit, Sanji cursed. He pirouetted with a leg ablaze, but the enemies dodged. They appeared behind Robin and Usopp, so fast that only the monster trio followed their movements. Luffy's eyes shot wide open. Look out, he yelled. He stretched his hand to help his friends, but something trapped his wrist in a crashing, unyielding grip. It then pulled him with a great strength. He stumbled and he almost collapsed on the creature that grabbed him. He managed to catch himself upright in the last moment and he jumped over it, letting his captivated arm stretch. He turned in the direction of Robin's and Usopp and stormed their attackers with an onslaught of kicks. The creatures reeled backwards, screeching in agony. Good, the boy thought. He hit something vital. His triumph was short-lived. Before he could touch the ground, the pressure around his wrist increased and he was yanked backwards. He fluttered his wings, trying to slow himself down. It didn't work. He crashed on the creature and immediately gagged. His nose was flooded with horrid stench that made him see blue. He trashed, frantic to get away. He pulled his head away and was met with a hungry smile. Small, round eyes embedded in swollen face were staring at him blankly. He saw a mouth without lips and rows of crooked, rotten teeth. Saliva was seeping from beneath them and dripping on the ground. And there was a fin. A fin-like appendage with a single bulge, which Luffy recognized as a fingernail. It was reaching towards him. The Straw Hat wearer panicked. He pulled his hand as hard as he could, and suddenly its hold loosened. The severed fin dropped on the deck. It was gushing bluish, slimy fluid, connecting with Shisui and Watto. A terrifying screech exploded in Luffy's eardrums. The creature reeled backwards and Zoro immediately jumped away, carrying his captain to a safer spot. The rubber boy quickly looked around. While the green-haired man placed him back on his feet, he took in the situation of the others. It seemed that 5 beasts were already down. Many more were sliding on the deck and making blood-chilling noises. Their movements were inhumanly fast. Some of the crew couldn't keep up and Nami desperately unleashed a lightning attack, trying to hit beasts around her. Sparks frizzled on their bodies, but the creatures barely twitched. They swept towards her, slowly, unhurriedly. Their heads hung limply on the elongated necks, happily bobbing up and down. They were smiling. Bastards, I'll kick your asses, Luffy roared. He escaped Zoro's grip on his shoulder and did just that, though he wasn't sure if these were asses he was kicking. Nevertheless, it worked and he sent the animals crashing onto a mast, one after another. The red-haired doubled over. Thanks, Luffy. She called out. She clutched her heart, feeling it beat madly. Witch, move out of the way, damn it. Zoro yelled at the navigator. He slashed another creature that almost rammed into Nami. And Luffy, you idiot. Watch your back, will ya? Luffy twisted around. There was a grinning face inches above him. Wah, he screamed. He quickly jumped away. Or at least he tried to. His back slammed onto another creature, its bulk hard, slimy and unmoving. In the next second, 5 more figures formed a tight circle around the Raven. Luffy gritted teeth. He sent fists flying at his opponents, but he suddenly found no resistance. He saw as if in slow motion as his hand sank in one animal's belly, the rolls of fat parting before it. The beast let it go as deep as it could. Before the boy could pull his hand away, the flesh clamped around it. What? The Raven gasped. He struggled to get himself free, but it didn't matter how hard he trashed. What the hell? Give me back my hand, you stupid snails. He could only watch as rolls of fat unfolded without warning, revealing a black, sucking hole between them. The boy's arm was trapped inside of it. Luffy! Zoro yelled. He noticed his position. He rushed towards him as the folds outstretched towards the boy's figure. The captain stared in shock. He only managed a short shriek before he was swallowed whole. Luffy! Zoro screamed. He started viciously swinging all of his swords, tearing way through the onslaught of creatures. The beast that captured Luffy raced to the railings. Zoro moved faster. He was on it in seconds, aiming for blood. At the same time, Luffy opened his eyes. He found himself in a place of unfathomed darkness. Whichever way he turned, there was nothing to be seen, nothing to touch with his rubbery limbs. It was void of sound and smell, just a black hole in the middle of nowhere. But the boy didn't panic. There was only one thing in his mind and he embraced it. He knew there were possibilities. It seemed like something he forgot very, very long ago. He closed his eyes, letting this memory engulf him. He cherished this feeling. He needed no more. Until something screamed. Zoro roared with uncontrollable fury. He plunged on the creature, swooping his legs around its neck. He grabbed folds of its slippery skin and pulled, throwing the head in the air. When it was at his eye level, a disfigured mouth twisted in snarl, he sent a sword right through its base. He didn't care about wails of agony that followed. He carefully cut the beast's stomach, wary not to cripple Luffy in the process. He was rewarded with a desperate gasp as the boy fell out. The Raven dropped on the deck with a wet thump. He lied still for a moment, as if stunned. He didn't make any move or sound, and Zoro's heart lurched. He jumped off on the ground, letting the beast roll on its back, and reached to touch his captain. It was then when Luffy twitched. The light came back to his eyes and he shook, breaking out of his trance. He looked up to the swordsman, and then back down, noticing that he was covered in slime. Yuck, Zoro, that's disgusting, he cried out, running hands all over himself. The green-haired man blinked. His eye widened in surprise and then narrowed. He scrutinized the boy in silence, watching as the latter made a wry face at the fluids. Smell. Che, that's what you get for being careless, Zoro snorted. He turned around, deciding that his captain's previous behavior was due to shock. Luffy grinned. He got back up and into a fighting stance, ready to send the intruders about his ship. Then suddenly, death. He heard it very clearly. He looked around with a wide-eyed gaze. It wasn't long before the voice came again. Death. Death to those that bring it. Death. The boy drew in a breath. He did a double take at the creatures. He saw the faces of those ugly beasts, truly saw them. He noticed what he had missed before. In those beady, lidless eyes was cold and unyielding rage. It was paired with unforgiving fury for those who opposed it. Rage against Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Robin, Frankie, Brook. But not against Chopper. The reindeer was fighting as hard as the others, trying to keep his friends away from harm. He, however, never received a hit. Death to those that bring it. Death, so we can protect. The Raven tilted his head. He looked up at the beast who glided in front of him, coming to a stop inches away. It answered his gaze with its own one, somewhat sad and tired, but nevertheless determined. So very determined. Ah, I got it, Luffy said and smashed his fist into his left palm. You are mystery snails. Yosh, he drew in a breath. Oi, guys, stop right there. Everyone, even the creatures, froze in mid-strike. What? Nami stuttered, dumbfounded. What are you screaming for, you idiot? She screeched and dealt her unsuspecting opponent a blow. Do you want us to get killed? No, Nami, enough of this. The captain commanded. He grabbed her weapon before she could leash out again. And you, snail, he roared, pointing at the creature which was about to eat Brook's afro out of his head. No one fights. Captain's orders. Are you crazy, Luffy? Usopp sounded horrified. Why are you stopping us from protecting our lives? Is your brain malfunctioning? Or were you infected with a virus that makes you side with the enemy? Oh no, we must save your brain now. Save it, agreed Chopper, running with Usopp in circles. It's fine, guys. Luffy sent them a cheerful grin that no one found comforting. It's just a misunderstanding. Am I right, you snail thingy? The beats' faces seemed as blank as ever. Lu FFY. Nami gritted through her teeth. She couldn't decide whether to be more furious or fearful now that the enemy was standing so close and she was forbid to fight it. If what Usopp says is miraculously true, you better grow back your rubber brain now. She, you guys are so funny. The Raven laughed. The crewmates sent him incredulous looks. But, his eyes turned serious, things got too far. Oi, snails, come here for a sec. The Straw Hats were even more surprised when the beasts actually listened. Yosh, Luffy pumped his fists when a row of 9 creatures formed in front of him. Now talk, why did you attack us? The crewmates couldn't believe their eyes when Luffy indulged in a wordless conversation. He was nodding and grunting to something only he seemed to hear, while the beast silently towered over his tiny figure. I see, Luffy finally said. So, you were trying to protect me. They were what? The Straw Hats chorused. Luffy, those beasts tried to eat you. Zoro reminded, wondering how his captain could be so hopelessly stupid. No, they did not. The boy denied. They say that their belly is used to carry things around. They just wanted to take me away from you, guys. That's just as bad. The crew raged. HMPH. You are being mean now, Luffy pouted. But I'm telling you, it's fine. These are mystery snails. They say they are guardians of death, but actually guard the living. They had holiday at this nice island and became friends with cool turtles. But then nasty things attacked the island. So turtles escaped and snails protected them from bad people, and they don't like people at all, and they thought you were bad. But they saw Chopper and he wasn't a person, but he was. So they were confused, and they thought I was one of their own, silly snails. They tried to protect me from you and they were wrong, because you are Nakama. I told them you were good. And they are again confused. But they didn't mean harm. And aren't they just awesome? Come and say hello. The Straw Hats could only look at him in shock. It was a long, long day for them all. As Luffy eloquently explained, the creatures were adamant, so stay close to Sunny. The Straw Hats furiously protested. No matter what Luffy said, they found the animals' dead-like eyes and general appearance hard to trust. But the creatures stayed. They were currently sitting in a long row opposite to humans, out on the deck. They did not move, didn't make a single sound. Each of them, even those cut by Zoro, seemed perfectly fine. Perhaps they had restorative abilities. The Straw Hats were cautious around them. They kept a careful watch over Luffy, who was blabbering and petting one creature on its back. Strangely enough, it was patient with his treatment. If a Straw Hat other than Luffy or Chopper budged, all would shoot them their blood-chilling gazes. Brook, however, had it by far the worst. If he as much as breathed too loud, the beast's glares turned hungry. Ah, the skeleton muttered. He couldn't stand this situation any longer. I usually appreciate attention, but can someone repeat who our guests are? I believe, Robin said, enduring sight of deformed faces turning in her direction, that these are the guardians of death. Seals of fate, is what people called them. Seals, Usopp repeated. He squealed when the beasts looked at him instead. Yes, Robin confirmed. It's because their appearance resembles a seal. What is more important, however, is that wherever those creatures gather, a tragedy will happen. It's as if they are sealing people's fate. Tragedy. Nami and Usopp shrieked. Then why are they doing on this ship? Frankie shouted. Well, perhaps they followed the turtles, Robin said. The others didn't miss a small pause she made. Excuse me, Robin-san. I'm a little confused, Brook revealed. You called our dear guests, guardians of death, but I didn't have, a pleasure to make their acquaintance. And I'm pretty sure that I already died. Shouldn't they have, well, escorted me to the other side? Not exactly. Seals of fate are said to bring death. They do not help those who experienced it, the black-haired woman explained. That's even worse, Usopp cried out. Perhaps. On the other hand, seals are worshipped in many cities. It's believed that they can choose to protect entire regions with animals that live there, preventing doom that shall happen. Well, isn't that a good thing? Nami wondered. They obviously took a liking to Luffy. He may be human or a demon, but Luffy, she suddenly gasped. What happened to you? All eyes instantly snapped in his direction. What? The boy asked. He didn't understand what the commotion was about. He just stood up and stretched, and now everyone was yelling. What's going on? Luffy. Usopp made a stifled noise. Your back. Look at your back. The raven obediently twisted his head around. He saw that his wings were unfolded. It wouldn't be anything strange, if only. They grew. He shouted. When? How? It is so cool. He had no idea when it happened, given that he was distracted with the snails' arrival, but the change was enormous. These weren't cute yet useless wings, not anymore. They had to measure at least 6 feet each, more than Luffy himself. They regained their previous structure of dark green membrane extended on a solid skeleton, but they were outlined with spikes and held power with every strike. Luffy was ecstatic. Wow, when did they get like that? I didn't notice. He squealed in excitement. He moved his wings back and forth, watching them flutter. Oi, shithead, Sanji called out. Better watch out or you will. Wah, Take off, the blonde finished. Luffy accidentally did just that. He rose in air for about 10 feet and then swayed, dropping face first on the deck. Or precisely, horns first. Bastard. Get up, Frankie shouted. He angrily pulled the captain by his tail and let him dangle above the ground. Look, you made holes in the desks. What do you think you are doing to Sunny? Sorry. The Raven apologized. His delighted expression didn't fade, so Frankie was hardly pleased. It's just so fun. Watch me go, he exclaimed and broke free. Oi, Luffy, stop. Nami yelled. Don't do anything stupid. You don't know how to use those things. Don't worry. I have everything under control, Luffy assured. He flew in drunken-like zigzag over the railings and almost smashed on a mast. Ups, maybe not, Luffy, everyone roared. Luffy answered them with a careless laugh. He got even more excited when he saw the seals slide into water and swim underneath him, accompanied by a school of turtles. That was the coolest. All right, everyone, follow me to the adventure, he commanded, and the reptiles jumped over water, stretching fins as if in a flight. They seemed to be having fun, strangely enough. That idiot, Nami hissed. What is he thinking? What if those beasts change their minds and attack him? Or if he sinks? He seems happy, Robin observed. She smiled as Luffy fell once again, but the seals quickly pulled him above the surface. He laughed and gave them a cheerful wave. Ah, I want to fly as well, Chopper squealed. He was jumping in place, trying to see over the railing. Maybe we could try this too, Brook said dreamily. Definitely not, Nami yelled. She proceeded to smack common sense into his skull. Sanji, when you think Luffy is in trouble, go and grab him with your skywalk. Of course, Nami swore. In the meantime, Luffy was having time of his life. The wind was strong and steady under his wings, carrying his tail in a long serpent behind him. His horns were cutting through it with a funny sound and he loved how air parted before them, and then scooped his hair in strong gusts. It was awesome. The water was sparkling, the sun bright and pretty. And the turtles and snails were really fun to be with. He wished his nakama could be with him as well. Guys, can you see this? It's amazing, he called out to his friends. Usopp, Chopper and Brook waved to him. Frankie struck a pose. Luffy thought that maybe he could carry them one at a time. Or, maybe later. It was strange how weak he felt all of a sudden. And why was water so close to his face? There was no wind under his wings. Wah, Luffy screamed. He flailed his arms, hoping to somehow stay in the air. Before he could crash into water, Sanji appeared and grabbed him by his tail. Shitty idiot, the cook said. He safely carried him back to Sunny and then dropped him on the ground, where the boy rolled a few times and came to a stop. His crewmates gathered around him and he flashed his trademark grin. He was tired, but really happy. He assured Chopper that yes, he was fine, and smiled even wider. Oh, the reindeer gasped. He ceased his fussing over the captain and leaned over his face. Luffy, your eyes, what happened to them? The rest of the Straw Hats bent, trying to see what was so unusual. Oh my, Brook said. Is that another effect of transformation? Can't say I'm surprised, Frankie declared. He crossed his arms over his broad chest. After everything that happened, oi, Chopper, Zoro called out. Think it won't cause him any harm. I don't want our captain blind. Luffy slowly sat up. He couldn't see what was so strange now. He didn't know until much later that the natural blue of his eyes gained a greenish tint, turning its color sea green near the center, and aquamarine on the perimeter. It was incredibly pretty, Nami decided. You are so cute like this. She cheered. She captured the boy in a death grip. Arg, Nami, can't breathe. Luffy choked out. Sanji went up in flames of jealousy. Yo-ho-ho-ho. It somehow suits our captain, doesn't it? Brook ventured. Does it hurt? Do you see normally? Chopper worried. No more. I don't want any more surprises. Usopp groaned. Zoro made a non-committal noise. His face betrayed nothing. He looks like a true pirate, Robin stated. Nami stopped squeezing life of the captain and loosened her hold. What do you mean by that? She asked the older woman. Well, Robin watched as Luffy choked, trying to get air back in his lungs. His eyes always reminded me of the sea. Everyone raised eyebrows at this comparison. The archaeologist continued with her calm explanation. Usually, she said, they are sparkling with excitement and wonder. They can get wild, but they are also gentle and strong, carrying people like the sea carries ships with their wings hoisted. But Luffy's eyes are much more than that. Robin smiled. She gazed deep into Luffy's orbits, admiring the color. Our captain loves the sea. He sees it wherever he goes, and now it looks as if the water reflects wherever he turns his gaze. Robin's smile brightened. And that makes me happy. It was late at night and Luffy was out of bed. He tiptoed to the door, trying to be as quiet as he could, meaning, not quiet in the slightest. His friends, however, didn't stir. The boy chewed on his bottom lip. No one said anything, but he guessed that they skipped at least a night worth of sleep, watching over him. They didn't rest at all. It was clear in their movements, and he refused to disturb them. He loved his nakama. He wanted them happy. That being said, he knew they would kill him if they discovered what he was doing. He quietly slipped outside. He closed the door as softly as he could, and crouched down. He crept on all fours or fives, counting the tail towards the railings and looked at the water. He ducked back down before the snails could notice his presence. He was such a good ninja. A quick glance was enough to show that the snails were swimming by Sunny. He was glad they didn't see him. "Yosh," he whispered. He crawled to one of the masts. He noticed faint light in the library, which meant that Nami was up. Luffy instantly felt guilty. He didn't enjoy hiding things from his crewmates, but there was no way around it. If Nami found him and questioned his behavior, she wouldn't like the answers. Luffy sighed. He knew it was a bad idea, but he couldn't help it. It was like a constant buzz in the back of his mind. He spent a few hours tossing and turning in his bed and almost went insane. He needed to fly. He just had to. He didn't get why it was so important, but it meant as much as meat, adventures and playing. Well, maybe not as much as meat or adventures. But it was a big deal. "Okay, let's go." He gave a quiet cheer. He climbed the ropes up to the spar. He stood there, taking a deep breath, and jumped off. He laughed when he felt wind in his wings. He avoided collision with a random seagull and sped up, feeling lighter than ever. Sunny was quickly left behind. It became just a small black dot on the background of vast, dark the ocean. The night was cool, the wind pleasant. The moon was giving the perfect amount of illumination, and when Luffy looked down, he saw reflections of stars. It was as if the sky kept stretching forever. The boy smiled. It was a small, sad smile. The captain regretted that he couldn't share this sight with his nakama. Speaking of which, when he looked back, he could no longer pinpoint his ship. Strange. Did he fly that far? It actually became a struggle to keep his flight up. His energy was dropping. He groaned, irritated that such small activity tired him out. "I need to land," he thought. He was surprised when his wish was granted and he saw an island. There were huge trees covering its surface. The boy lowered himself close to the sea. He floated over what should be a coastline and noticed how every square of ground was blocked with branches. He couldn't land. Exasperated, Luffy flew up again. He reached the top of the trees and grabbed the nearest tip like a monkey. He stayed like that for a moment, allowing himself to rest. His heart was thumping. He hated being this tired. He decided that his transformation was very cool, but it sucked in many aspects. "Ah, that's stingy," Luffy sighed. He knew he shouldn't search blindly for Sunny. Is there something to eat? Or maybe to land? He hopefully looked around. And bingo! His luck was as strong as ever. There was a ship anchored near the coast. It was hidden in shadows of the night and trees, branches. It was pure miracle that Luffy managed to spot it. Should I go there? The boy wondered. I don't know if they are good guys. Maybe they have meat. His eyes turned star-like. He jumped off from his perch and silently flew towards the vessel. He noticed that its flag displayed some strange emblem. It was one that couldn't belong neither to pirates nor the Marines. There were two people visible on the deck. Both of them male, they were standing in the light of a single lantern. "Oi," Luffy called out. He waved to them carelessly. "I'm Luffy. Nice to meet you. Do you have meat?" The strangers turned towards him. They stared at his quickly approaching figure, and their expressions changed. Surprise gave place to wonder. And then it switched to the strongest feeling. Desire. 1 hour earlier, Nami jumped to her feet. "That idiot," she yelled. She noticed how her moron of a captain happily leapt off a spar. She ran outside and tried to call him back, but it was too late. "I can't believe him," the navigator raged. "Just wait, Luffy, when I get my hands around your squishy neck." "Wah!" she shrieked when a seagull with apparent death wish landed on her head. She grabbed the poor animal by its wing and slammed it onto the ground. It stilled, voicing a broken cry of complaint, and fell unconscious from the impact. "That bird," the woman muttered. "Wait, what is this?" They took off a scrap of paper, which was tied to the animal's leg. She unrolled it and read the text, while the other crewmates came out on the deck. "Oi, Nami, what's going on?" Usopp asked. He was woken up by the ruckus. He sleepily rubbed his faces, looking at her through his fingers. But Nami didn't answer. "Hey, witch, are you listening?" Zoro growled. "What's up with these screams in the middle of the night? And where is Luffy?" The Straw Hat's insides twisted when the last question was left unanswered. Their dread grew stronger when Nami dropped the message, her hands shaking, and shouted. "Guys, get on your positions immediately. We must find Luffy now." The crew was aghast for a moment. They didn't know how long it was before they broke out of their stupor and scattered, driven by fear in the navigator's voice. She rushed to join them as well, ominous words echoing in her mind. "Strafut Luffy," the letter said. "We know your demonic secret. We are coming for you and we will meet you shortly. Don't think you can escape. We waited hundreds of years to finally get you. We shall never stop till we finally claim you. Think of yourself as ours. X and Y." Nami squeezed her eyes. This message made her shiver in genuine fear, even though she wasn't new to people chasing after their lives. But this time was different. Her warning bells were going off like crazy. She could only hope that they would find Luffy soon enough. Because if they wouldn't,